All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, Mack McCarthy. We have talked college basketball with you all season long, and man, now we're to the good stuff. The NCAA tournament beginning tonight with the first four. You can hear the action right here on Pirate Radio, and wall-to-wall coverage coming up Thursday and Friday. Coach Mack, how you doing, sir?
I am good. Exciting time of the year. We talked about it last week a little bit, but you know, uh, careers, reputations, fortunes are all out there to be made this time of year.
I love it because we can get away from the portal and NIL for a few weeks. There'll be factors in the games we watch and how the rosters were assembled and all that, but it's all about wins and losses at this point, and that is what excites me for the next couple of weeks. Mac, before we get to the games, I have your bracket here on my phone. Appreciate you doing that, and we've got it printed out and on the big board, so you are in our contest here at Pirate Radio, so good luck. But a few things to talk about. Some people could take it as if we complain a lot during our segments. I like to think we're just creating solutions and trying to solve problems. That's how I look at it. How do we solve the issue, or do we touch the issue of acting ADs working on these selection committees and being the chair of the selection committee? And it happens that the last team put into the NCAA tournament is where Bubba Cunningham resides as the athletics director. I talked about it with David Glenn yesterday. Could we put Jay Wright and Mack McCarthy? You guys are going to have biases. Everybody does, but at least you won't be a sitting AD. Do we need to fix this, Mac, or is it not an issue? It just happened to be maybe this year.
I don't think you can get away from the biases, like you said, whether it's Jay Wright or me or Coach K. We're all going to have biases, and probably in some way, maybe not as directly as Bubba Cunningham, might benefit from those biases. So I don't think if humans are going to be involved, you're going to have biases. So I don't think that's the solution. Now, if you want to go to some kind of metric like we used to with the BCS and that kind of thing, that might be okay. But everybody raised Cain. We need the human element. We need the eye test. And now that we have the human element, we want to gripe about that too. So the bottom line is, if your team is left out or some team you hate gets in, you're going to have a problem with it no matter what the system is.
I hate to say it, you're right, and I agree with you because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, what's the alternative? Going to AI selection committee, and I don't want that. Kind of reminds me of complaining about umps and refs, and then you say, okay, we can just go robo umps, and I'm like, no, I don't want that, because part of the fun is complaining about the refs and complaining about the committee. So at the end of the day, we need to keep the humans in it. There's always going to be biases. You put it best. When humans are involved, it's going to be imperfect. So I guess we'll roll with it then, Mac. All right, we solved another issue. This one is not broke. We don't need to fix it, I guess.
Okay, no complaints today.
All right, let's get. I have a complaint. I forgot you're Mr. Chalky Chalk. You don't have a ton of stuff going on your bracket. You've got now. We talk about 12 fives and even 13 fours. I've been listening to a lot of Field of 68 podcasts and shows this week on YouTube. John Fanta has been rolling out some stats. The last 8 years, I believe he said, the 11 and the 6 matchup, 50-50 split down the middle. And you do have an 11 beating a 6 in Drake. I think your other double-digit winner is McNeese, which a lot of folks like Clemson. You are not one of those folks. So let's talk about those two. Let's start with McNeese beating Clemson. I didn't know until listening to these shows that Will Wade went to Clemson, Coach Mack. So the committee loves these little storylines, right?
Yeah, no, they don't love the storylines. They're going to happen again. Inevitable in the world of college basketball. You're going to have connections between coaches, schools, that kind of thing. But yeah, Will is a Clemson grad. Has been mentioned maybe for the job if Brad Brownell were to seriously be involved in Indiana, where he's from. But again, yeah, I don't think any of those things happened because the committee said, "Hey, that would be a really good story to have." So I don't think they do that. I think they happen organically.
Are you on the committee? You are defending the NCAA and the committee today, big time, Mac. Are
No,
you
I'm
are you
okay
getting
with
paid?
going back. I'm okay with going back to computer scores. I don't care about the committee, but again, they. I don't think they do some of the things they're accused of for sure.
Why McNeese over Clemson? What do you not like about the Tigers that a lot of folks do like and think they can make a run here?
Well, Brad gets the most out of his team. They're well prepared, well coached every single night. They seldom beat themselves, but let's be honest, the ACC is not good this year. That's a Clemson team that would finish seventh, eighth, ninth in a normal season for the ACC. They finished second because the league is not good. It doesn't take away from the job Brad has done or the story that Clemson last year getting to the Elite Eight, backing it up with a second place finish in the ACC. Doesn't take away from that. But you're also playing one of the teams that kind of expected to be here, going back to the NCAA. Sometimes when you get there for that first time, you're just happy to be there, but you go back with a lot of the same players. Now they know they belong, and I just think this is one of the ones that could come through.
Best round one matchups. People are excited about VCU, BYU, Louisville, Creighton. Is a great matchup. Should be a good game. And I hear Missouri Drake as well, Coach, due to the contrast of styles. And you are taking the slow paced Bulldogs of Drake over the Missouri Tigers. Why?
Yeah, Missouri really played well. Coach Gates had an unbelievable season, went 0-18 a year ago, and this year they're a contender and easily in the tournament. But Coach McCollum at Drake has won everywhere he's been. He's got a really good team. I don't think he'll be distracted by all the job offers he has, which are more than one. But I'm sure that's in the back of his mind somewhere. But he's done a really good job, and sometimes that slow pace just kind of happens in the NCAA tournament, and maybe the ones that play a little slower might have a slight advantage.
One upset you are not taking, and it wouldn't be a huge one, but VCU, BYU.
Yeah.
Why are you going against your Rams there? They were tremendous this year.
First of all, they're seated too low. They're better than what are they, 11? They're way better than 11. But I like them in a lot of 11-6 matchups, but not this one. BYU is playing really well. They just played good basketball, and watching them a few times on late night when I couldn't go to sleep, they were impressive to me. Would it shock me if VCU wins? Not even a little bit, but they would have been a sexy pick, I think, in any other kind of matchup. I really like this VCU team. They've got length, they've got size, they've got a great shooter, the player of the year in the A10, and they're really athletic. I like this team a lot, but I just think they got a bad matchup and a bad seed.
Mac, man, how about being in the building with Calipari, Patino, and Bill Self? That little pod there,
All
and
all
go ahead,
over 800 wins. All of them
man.
over 800 wins.
One thing I do like about college sports, and I wish we could do it in other sports, like if you want to put Derrick Henry and Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes in the Hall of Fame this offseason, I'd be okay with that. I don't know. I don't think people should argue. I don't know why we have to wait forever to put guys in the Hall of Fame, but we got three Hall of Famers here in this group, Coach Mack, and you have Rick Pitino reigning supreme, knocking off Kansas in round one, meaning you have Self over Calipari in round one. I'm sorry, Patino beating Self in round two. So how about that little group, and how about the Johnnies, man? That was fun to watch. Madison Square Garden going nuts the other night.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old days, but it's been a long time, and it makes you wonder. I can't tell you how many schools passed on hiring Patino along the way, and I am sure there's some ads or maybe now former ads that really regret that move.
No doubt, no doubt. Mac, for the lack of upsets, you do have something here that I think a lot of people are fading at this point, and that would be Iowa State, partly due to injury, but you have the Cyclones making a big run all the way to the Final Four. I've seen folks saying Auburn will lose at one place or another, but there's a lot of Izzo coming out of that bracket. I've even heard some Buzz Williams coming out of there. So if it's not Bruce Pearl, I haven't seen a lot of Iowa State. Why the Cyclones?
Yeah, I don't really believe in this pick at all, but I can tell you, Izzo, they he had made a run. They haven't made a run in a while. I don't like A&M from a scoring standpoint, although they do go get it when they miss it. Auburn is the sexy pick, and but I also don't think with them losing three of their last four, I also don't think all four number ones. Excuse me. I don't think all four number ones are going to make it.
Yeah,
So I just bumped them out.
I'm with you there, and my Iowa State, if you will, on my bracket would be Texas Tech, just because I didn't want to put all
Yeah,
number ones in the Final Four.
good pick.
You gotta mix it up somewhere. So I went with the Red Raiders because I'm gonna have Houston, I'm gonna have Duke, and I think I will have. I think I'm gonna go with Auburn as well. I am gonna have. I think an Auburn Houston final. You've got a Florida Houston final, but we both have it ending the same way. I'm pulling for Kelvin Sampson to finally win one, and you think he can do it this year?
Yeah, I do, but I've picked them before too. But
Me too.
I do think they're a little bit better offensively, and I think everybody's got some weaknesses. I think there's no. I mean, Florida is playing like a super team right now. Auburn has at times. Duke has at times. But I really I might be like you. I might be rooting for Kelvin Sampson more than I am picking him.
Yep, I've gotten that way. I kind of do this too. There was a 2 or 3 year stretch where I'd put Gonzaga in there in the final, and they, about the third time they let me down, I said, "All right, time to find a new team to let me down," and it's going to be Houston until they get it done. But man, they were good all year long in the Big 12, and have really dominated that league, Mac. And are you surprised at all? We'll talk a little bit about the conferences here, but how about the Big 12? Houston reigning supreme these last 2 years. I know they lost the championship last year, but regular season wise, they have cruised since joining that conference.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at their success, although it kind of comes at the expense of like Kansas. But no, I thought they would be competing for the championship. Did I think they were going to probably win the regular season the first 2 years they're in the league? I probably wouldn't have picked that. But competing for the championship, I absolutely would have expected that.
How much stock do you put into what Florida did? Not only did they win, it was kind of UConn esque what they did in the SEC tournament, blowing teams out, just dominating. Does that mean they are the team to beat right now, or are you okay with Alabama and Auburn and Tennessee losing and still being okay for this NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I do think that Florida is probably going into the tournament playing better than anyone else. But how many times does the red hot team win the whole thing, or how many times does the odds-on favorite win the whole thing? I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. But gosh, they've had some impressive wins down the stretch that make you, if I had to put actual money on it, I probably would bet on Florida.
Coach Mack, my issue with Florida is I think their head coach is like 19 years old. That's a young looking 38 or 39-year old, whatever he is.
Yeah, he is. He's an analytics guy and a great background and has done an incredible job. And if any of those jobs on the West Coast open, I think you might have seen him be involved heavily. Like Bobby Hurley got to stay, and that was one I think he would have probably considered. But he's a West Coast guy, but he has done a great job in Florida.
Mac, is it X's and O's or Jimmy and Joe's this time of year? What do you say as a lifelong coach? When you get to these big games, you get, and I bring that up because Florida has such a young head coach and could face off against an experienced coach somewhere down these lines. Maybe a Hurley who's won back-to-back championships in round two or later in the bracket with Rick Pitino. How much is that a factor versus the 5 to 8 guys you have running out there on the court?
Yeah, it's never one or the other. And one thing for sure, if you don't have the Jimmys and Joes, it doesn't matter how good you are at X's and O's. But at this point, a whole lot of people have the good Jimmys and Joes, and then it does come down to a little bit of chess match from the sideline.
Mack did trivia last night. It was the anniversary of God Sham God, Austin Crozier, and Providence beating Duke in the 1997 NCAA tournament. So remind me, did you face them after they beat Duke or before they beat Duke?
After, yeah, they beat
Sweet
Duke.
16 game. Okay.
Yeah, they beat Duke, and we beat Georgia, and then Illinois, and then we played. They were honestly the worst team that we played, but they played well. God Sham God, it's hard to beat God Sham God. Now, and for the most of the game, we did a pretty good job staying between him and the basket. But then they also had a lottery pick in Crozier, and it was, we make a few free throws. Who knows whether we'd be talking right now?
Mac was almost too big for me and Pirate Radio, but Providence got him. Man, that's awesome though, Mac. So we're celebrating almost an anniversary for you in the Sweet 16 there, winning in the round of 32. I've asked you about this before, but what is Selection Sunday like, and how do you make it from? Well, we achieved our goal versus getting the guys ready to. All right, hey, let's try to go win the thing. Was that difficult for you at Chattanooga?
No, that's absolutely the way it is. When you only make it once every 10 or 20 or maybe 30 years, you really are fighting that feeling about just being happy to be there. But the year we went to the Sweet 16, that was our fourth time in 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we were over all that happy to be here stuff, and we also knew we belonged, and then we also and I'm tired of hearing this phrase this week already. It's all about the matchups, but it is all about the matchups.
Where were your games at, Coach? Where'd you have to fly off to?
We were in Charlotte.
Okay, good trip.
Yeah, yeah, we were in Charlotte. Good trip, and we had a ton of folks there, and of course Georgia was there, and Duke dominated the crowd, as you can imagine, and Providence had two or three people there, but yeah, we won that and turned right around and played Illinois, a really good team for Lon Kruger that was the fifth seed, and we were the first and maybe still the only 14 seed to make it. I know we were the first 14 seed to make it to the second weekend
Man, and where'd you play Providence?
in Birmingham, which was great for us also. And ironically, the last time I was in the Sweet 16 with Auburn, we were also in Birmingham after beating Kansas and Purdue at Notre Dame. We went to Birmingham where we lost to Kenny the Jet Smith and the Tar Heels.
What is that turnaround like for these coaches, Mac? Especially when you're pulling a first round upset. Not that you would call it an upset because you said you'd been there 4 times in 5 years. Your guys probably expected to win round one, but you win that one. Good grief! Now you really got to get them back focused. So and you don't have a whole lot of time to prepare. So how much preparing can you really do between rounds 1 and 2, and do you already have kind of work done for those next opponents you might face?
Oh, you've got all your work done for sure, and the work being done is so much easier today because of all the websites and all the technology, the analytics. You can hit a button or two and have all the information you need. We had to get videotapes, we had to get VHS tapes, and we literally anybody in the top 20, we had recorded them all year on VHS tapes at our homes. We each had 4 or 5 5 teams, we were recording their games. So we had any of the possibilities that we might face going forward. And of course, in addition to friends that played in their leagues or maybe played them in the non-conference. So that part's good. Now, the turnaround is a valid concern because if you're going to completely change your game plan or have to tweak it in a big way and do it overnight, that's pretty tough to do. Fortunately, the game plan for Illinois for us was exactly the same as it was for Georgia. They were very similar in how they played and how they ran offense and the strengths of their team. So it really worked out to our advantage. And again, like I said, I'm breaking my own rule, but it did come down to being a really favorable matchup.
Mack McCarthy joining us. Mack, I'm very nostalgic about Selection Sunday and the tournament, and I just love it as a kid. I'm not quite as old as Mack McCarthy, but I lived in a pre-internet era where I would have my poster board and my bracket wrote out, and then when they'd announce the teams, I'd write them all in and keep it up on my wall during the tournament. And my dad would get me out of school to watch day one of the tournament. It was, and then I'd go outside and shoot and play my own. It brings back a lot of memories. I bring all that up to say it was kind of tough to see it without Greg Gumbel, and they did a great tribute. I don't know if you watched it, Mac, at the beginning of the show, but that was a really cool tribute they did for Gumbel.
Yeah, and he had kind of become synonymous about that, just like the Masters and Nance and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this whole thing, the whole March Madness has been such a big part of my life. I started going and gosh, I don't want to say maybe 75 or 76, and I probably until I stopped going in about 2013 or so, I probably missed one or two. I missed the Magic and Bird one in Salt Lake City in '79,
Wow.
but that might have been the only one I missed until 2013 or something like that. And
Well, that's why it's the most watched game, because you had to watch it on TV. Because you
yeah,
weren't there.
that's part of it. And speaking of TV, this is a really interesting stat. ESPN. I'm working for in the WBIT. I've got 3 games coming up, or potentially 3 games coming up, depending on who wins the games. But ESPN did a lot of research, obviously, for the tournament and that kind of thing. And what is the number? What percentage do you think of the people that are going to watch March Madness that haven't watched during the regular season?
So, casual, or not even casual, but fans that are just going to watch the tournament that didn't watch during the regular season.
Right.
Well, how do I equate that number? So, how do you? I guess. So, okay. I'm going to say. I don't know what 10.
If there are 100, if 100 people are going to watch the tournament,
how many didn't watch during the regular season?
how
I'll
many didn't
say
watch during the regular season?
15, 10 to 15%.
43%.
Good God. That's
43%
yeah.
that didn't watch during the regular season are going to watch March Madness.
Well, and then thanks to the brackets and it being on instead of Young and the Restless, some people are going to watch it by accident, Coach Mack.
I've had some teams that would have had a big problem with that. They scheduled their classes around the Young and the Restless.
I mean, I want to know what Victor Newman's doing at age 95. Mack McCarthy joining us. Very, very pumped up. All right. Hold on. Let me see if Shirley just walked in, Coach Mack, because she wanted to be a part of this segment, and I don't know if she forgot or if she was running late or if she didn't know I was going to call you a little early. Let me call Shirley real quick. She wanted to talk some women's hoops. See if she picks up the phone. Dang, Shirley, what if it's an emergency? Just don't answer my calls?
Yo.
Shirley, are you here?
No, I'm not here.
Oh, well, I'm talking to Mack McCarthy.
Right now?
Well, yeah, it's 2:00. Hello? Oh, well, I don't know. Anyway, I'll ask you,
Sure.
Mac. Give us a women's basketball tournament preview. Is it Dawn Staley? Is it my girl Chloe Kitts and the Gamecocks winning it again, or who are the other contenders for the championship?
The list. Obviously Tennessee forever. It was an upset if they didn't win it. Then it was Connecticut if it wasn't an upset. They were going to win it. And then it was South Carolina. You could throw a few things in there, but this year there are more people. There are probably 5, 6, 7. I mean, if South Carolina wins it, it wouldn't be a surprise. USC, UCLA, UConn, Notre Dame, maybe Texas. There are a number of teams that it would not be a shock if they won this tournament. So I think that I love the fact that past Caitlin Clark, the women's game seems to have sustained the interest and enthusiasm that they have this year.
Well, I was going to say, you talked about that men's tournament number. I was part of that women's number last year that didn't watch during the regular season, but
Yeah.
watched in the postseason. And I'll probably maybe Final Four, check it out and see who's there and watch it. But I got to imagine the ratings are going to be way down from last year.
I don't know. Regular season, they have not been. Attendance has not been down. I think they've sustained it. I think there are enough stars, whether it's Hannah Hidalgo or Juju Watkins or Paige Beckers or any of the other number of Tanaya Latson. You can go on and on about the stars. Betts, the center at UCLA. I think there's enough star power there to keep the numbers high. I really do.
Mack McCarthy joining us. Mac, how do you rank the openings? And if there's other big ones, remind me. But Indiana, Iowa, NC State, any other big ones out there?
Virginia and Villanova.
Oh, when did Neptune get let go? Did I miss that?
Yesterday or the day before.
Okay, all right. So that was recent. I missed that one. Yeah, of course, Virginia with Ron Sanchez. So what is so Ron Sanchez is out? Like he's
Yeah. He's
wow.
gone.
Okay, so interesting move for him to go from what Charlotte head coach to Virginia assistant to Virginia head coach to
Yeah.
available now. Where does NC State rank amongst those openings?
Well, it's a good job. You probably put an SEC or Big Ten job above that just because of the resources, the dollars available through the television packages, which is certainly mostly football driven, but still a fact of life. But among basketball itself, Villanova, NC State, Indiana, Virginia. I mean, at some point in time, they have all been among the premier programs in the country. And now, the first question that every coach that's going to be contacted by those schools is going to ask, what's your NIL package?
There you go. Top of the list right now. Let me ask you a question Jamie brought up during my chat with David Glenn yesterday and get your thoughts on it. Blip on the radar for the ACC or the new reality of the SEC and Big Ten's dominance, not just in football, like we talk about for a lot of months,
Yeah.
Mac, but you kind of mentioned
Yeah.
it there, throughout all of sports. Is this going to be, normal for the ACC to be left behind?
I don't think it'll be necessarily normal, but again, with the gap between the revenue that's coming into the Big Ten and the SEC, I don't think it's going to be the ACC rising back to the top in a hurry. But again, the hires that Virginia makes and that NC State makes, Miami has already made their hire. I think are going to be critical for the ACC, and then on top of that, maybe even more important than who they hire is the commitment the schools are making. And from what I hear and what I'm hearing, NC State and Virginia have both stepped up to the table and said, we want to be players in this thing.
I've brought it up the last 2 or 3 years. The SEC has made some tremendous basketball hires. David Glenn reminded me yesterday that comes at the same time of all the legends in the ACC stepping down and moving on. So
That's right.
it all kind of happened at the same time. Mac, before we go, I'll let you be the college basketball expert because I am the NASCAR expert. I once again had the best average. So here are your point totals, folks. Clip Brock Motorsports, 17 points on the year. Coach Mack in second place with -2, and Jarrett in third with -3.
Yeah, go ahead and points race. We'll see who's there at the end of the year.
All right. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for you guys right now.
Yeah, it's hard for you to be that far ahead in anything.
It's never happened before. Where are we at this weekend, Mac?
Somewhere out west. We were in Vegas. We were in Phoenix.
See.
Homestead.
Yep.
And then next week I'll be reporting live for Pirate Radio from Martinsville, Virginia.
Nice. Mac had a thought. The day after Selection Sunday every year, we should have a Monday night race. So you have Championship Sunday, Selection Sunday, and then a bad sports day that following day because there's no college basketball, not a lot going on. Have a Monday night race that day. What do you think?
You don't. I mean, would you rather have that, or would you rather have a race that leads in to the selection show?
No, because that's when some championship games are.
Yeah.
All right, just a thought. You don't.
No,
like it.
it's not. It's not a bad thought. You are butting heads with some pretty big draws, no question.
Or maybe Sunday night. I know. I guess we don't like night races that for attendance or whatever, but Sunday night post-selection show would actually be good because there's no games on at night.
Well, you've got the men at 6 and the women at 8. It'd be hard to go at 9 or 10.
All right, just trying to figure out. Again, why am I trying to? This is just me complaining more, Mac. I apologize.
We've avoided complaining most of the show. You've done a good job.
Hey, Mac, enjoyed it, man. When do you call your games for the? What did you say?
I have fortunately for me, Virginia Tech. They were sad to be left out of the NCAA for the first time in 5 years, but because of that, they're the number 1 seed in the WBIT, which ends up in Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is now owned by the NCAA. The WBIT is, so they're the top seed. So they will host the first 3 rounds should they continue to win, which means I'll get to do TV for the first 3 rounds before, assuming that they win the games they're favored to win, they'll go to the Final Four in Indianapolis. So we'll keep your fingers crossed for me to work 3 games.
All right, Mac, sounds good. Thank you, man. Enjoy the games. We'll keep in touch and talk again next week.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mac. Enjoyed it, man.